Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our information session about volunteering with SA Ambulance Service. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us tonight. We have a number of speakers to talk about volunteering. We don't anticipate taking up lots of your time, but we do want to give you as much information as possible so that you get a feel for what we're about, what we can offer you, and indeed how you can benefit from being involved with the SA Ambulance Service. My name is Robert Tolson. I'm the Executive Director for Country Operations. So we use volunteer workforce in country predominantly, not in the metropolitan area. So for me, it's a great privilege to work alongside nearly 1,200 volunteers across the state, and we're always keen to hear from people who have an interest in volunteering and can make a difference in their communities. So thank you very much for coming on board tonight. Before we get started, we'll just do an acknowledgement of country, and we'll acknowledge that I'm on Kaurna country here in Adelaide. There may be some of you dialing in from other parts of the state on different Aboriginal lands. We like to acknowledge the fact that the traditional owners of country throughout South Australia and recognise their continuing connection to the land, their spirituality, history and culture. It's a very important part of our state in our country, and it's also very important that we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, because we can learn so much from them. So it's great to be here on Kaurna country, and equally whatever country you're on tonight, it's great that you've been able to dial in. Now, we do have some housekeeping that we would like to just touch upon, just to keep the presentation flowing. If you can keep your camera and microphones turned off, it'll just help with the flow of the information and the speakers that we've got for you tonight. If you want to ask a question, if we touch on something or you have a sudden idea about something you'd like to ask, at the top of your screen there's a Q&A button that you can click on and just type your question into there. We'll see that on a separate screen, and we'll be able to respond to those questions either during the presentation or maybe towards the end. We are going to record the session and therefore it'll be available elsewhere once the session has been completed. So tonight you've got myself, as I mentioned, Robert Tolson. We've also got several other great speakers for you tonight in Tony Agars, who's one of our volunteers at Yankalilla, and Tony has the responsibility and I guess the joy of being the team leader at Yankalilla, and that means he gets to lead a really dynamic, exciting team down there. And right across the state, we have volunteers who take up those leadership roles, and we like to try and support and develop people into those roles. So we're really excited to have Tony here tonight. And Daryl Sparrow. Daryl's one of our really important people in the volunteer sector. He's one of our regional team leaders, a paid position. Daryl works across the Adelaide Plains area, and as a paid member of staff, he has a lot of responsibility in relation to operational rosters and operational capability in his area. But his main focus is recruiting, training, and retaining volunteers in the Adelaide Plains. So it's great to have Daryl here tonight. He'll talk a little bit about the training component of what is involved in becoming a volunteer ambulance officer. And then Nicole Bradkey, who is the manager of our volunteer support unit, and the volunteer support unit is an integral part of our organisation. It's a fairly unique unit in the context of SAS, but also unique in the context of many agencies that use volunteers. This is a dedicated team whose job is to onboard volunteers, provide the interview and recruitment type processes so that Daryl and Tony and others can make sure that volunteers can work with us, but also provide support to volunteers once they come on board. So volunteer support is a really important part of our organisation, and look forward to hearing from Nicole later on. So the thrust of tonight is really about where we are and who we are and what we do. that map on the side there really demonstrates the extent of the SA Ambulance Service network, and in particular the crewing that exists right around South Australia. Now, the red dots, I want you to ignore. The red dots are the career stations. This is where we have paid paramedics and intensive care paramedics and ambulance officers working in those communities, because they're the larger urban centres, the ones that have much higher population density, but also much higher workload as a result. So they've had a career presence, often for many cases, many decades, and in some cases just in recent times. We've just recently put a paid presence into Bordertown to support the volunteers there. And that's as a result of the government's investment in the ambulance service. So it is an evolutionary thing. So the red dots are the career stations. It's the yellow dots we really want you to focus on and think about where you may be able to help and work with those communities in providing emergency ambulance response and providing transfer type capability. So we have about 78 teams, about 1,200 volunteers, and that's made up of just over 1,100 operational volunteers and about 100 support volunteers who just help out around the station. We are literally in every corner of the state that's populated. Obviously, the further out you go and the more remote, there is less need and less stations. But we are very much about that emergency healthcare and the patient transfer of patients. So if we think about patient transfer services, moving patients between hospitals to appointments and the like, so we do a lot of that work as well. So we really are the front line of the health system. As a volunteer ambulance officer, and you'll hear a little bit about the training and the qualifications shortly, but as a volunteer ambulance officer, you will be an integral part of providing healthcare in your community. And as we'll mention later too, it gives you an opportunity to develop a career, whether that's in ambulance or whether it's in health more generally. So, you know, it's a really great opportunity. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Tony and let Tony talk to you a bit about why you should consider volunteering. So, Tony, we'll hand over to you now.
Thank you, Rob. Well, as you might have heard, I'm the volunteer team leader down here at Yankalilla, which is situated on the fabulous Fleurieu Peninsula, and all of you should come down here because it's the best place to be. We've got a pretty dynamic team down here at Yank. We've got about 24 people that run a 24-hour day, 7 days a week, every day of the year operation. We're a mandated station, so we need to staff it. How did I become involved in volunteering? It was partly to do with the lovely Fleurieu. I strolled into my local surf shop looking for my board shorts for summer, and the lady behind the counter actually had the greens on and a uniform, and I asked her, what's all this about? And she was a volunteer here at Yank, Anne-Marie, and she talked to me a little bit about what she did, how she operated, how volunteering was working for her while still running a business in the area, and then invited me to an information night. And I went home and said to my wife, what do you reckon? Do you think you're going to come with me? And she said, yeah, I'll give it a crack. So last night at training, we got our 5-year certificates, my wife and I, for services to Yankalilla, which we're extremely proud of. But you really are joining a dedicated team of people, and this is a magnificent opportunity that we just can't believe we are lucky enough to get to do this, working with SAS, getting the training, achieving qualifications that really mean something, and more importantly, we have such a sense of self-satisfaction and that we are contributing to a community that really needs our help. We've got a large patch down here. We from Yankalilla, we can go to Cape Jervis, we can go backwards towards Aldinga, we can go to Victor Harbour, even Goolwa, and possibly beyond. With those 24 people, that's all hours of the day, all hours of the night. We will come if called, if our pages go off. We've got a broad scope of jobs. Just Yank alone does about 1,000 jobs a year. which is pretty significant. And those jobs can range from medical retrievals and rubbing shoulders with the MedStar guys, helping them out, to working with paramedics that come from Victor Harbor or town into our patch. We go from things like just general illness and medical conditions to road traffic accidents, to emergency transfers, or even just transfers from grandma from the hospital over to Victor Harbor for x-rays. It's so wide ranging, and there's just so many different facets to it. I said you join a pretty dedicated team. We train regularly. We train once a week. We have various stages of training, and I'll go into that a little bit further. But it's all designed to make sure that we can help provide absolutely the best healthcare we can to our community. There's nothing like the sense of relief as you walk into someone's house at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're in trouble, and they see the green uniforms come in, and you just see a look of relief on their face, saying, "I'm going to be okay now because SAS is here and they're going to help me." So we take our training really seriously. We have people just beginning their journey, 18, 19 years old, and we've got people who are still continuing their journey into their 70s. And we're all one team. We all support each other, and what you'll find is that you're never alone in this magnificent journey for volunteering for SAS. Apart from training, you've got your teammates who we'll see socially. We'll have barbecues, we'll go out for dinner. You have paid paramedics, regional training leaders come in and teach us what we need to know, and this happens very regularly. But you build this confidence and you build this feeling of this is an amazing opportunity, and really you're at the elite end of volunteering. There's some pretty interesting benefits too. It's not like you have to put your hand in your pocket. The great thing that I felt about SAS was that they provide everything you need. The uniform is free, so you get kitted up. Part of the perks of the job are that you get free ambulance service, and I'm really relieved because I trust all my guys on my team, so I'm in pretty good hands. We don't expect you to put your hand in your pocket for travel or anything like that. We'll cover travel expenses and we'll pay for the meals while you're on shift. We can also organise childcare facilities, and the great thing is that you're completely covered with SAS insurance-wise while you're working on the job. I'll quickly go through a couple of the stages that you go through as you progress, because I think Daryl will actually go through the training in much more detail. But when you first come to us, you're going to be an observer, but that means you're straight on the ambulance with a crew, an ambulance officer and maybe another ambulance officer or an ambulance assist or ambulance responder. But you're there to see exactly how the job works. So there's no delay. You're straight onto the ambulance, and you're an observer until you begin your ambulance assist course, which is pretty well based in working out how all the equipment works, working out how to stay safe while you're doing your job. It's manual handling based, but once you've achieved that criteria, you will be an ambulance assistant, go on as a second crew member, working with an experienced ambulance officer. The next stage is ambulance responder, and that tends to get a bit more clinical. You learn about drugs, you learn about medical conditions, you learn what to look for and put your detective's hat on and try and work out conditions. It's much more clinical, and you actually get to sit in the back of the ambulance and treat people under supervision, once again by the ambulance officer. Then your next achievement is an AO, an ambulance officer, and that is when you've achieved your certificate for in healthcare, which is a pretty significant qualification in its own right. There are other areas that you can contribute to SAS in, like you can be a support volunteer, which is admin based, or whichever way you might have skills to offer us to help us run the operation. We're happy to have a talk to you. And those AOs, we're just working with a couple of our people now can have extended practice. We've got people that are tradies, they are teachers, there are mums, there are nurses, there are a couple of RNs, and they're the people that are going to go on a little bit further in their AO practice. But we're all in the same situation. We're all tremendously supportive of each other, and you'll find that the volunteering system with SA Ambulance is so welcoming. It's just a delight to be part of. You're never alone. You've got your teammates, and even when you're at work and working on the ambulance, you've always got the support of more senior people on the end of the phone who are more than happy to help you if you've got questions or advice as to which way to go with something. You are part of a really good team, and the support is incredible. So we're looking for people from that age of 18, 19 who are healthy enough to pass a doctor's exam, that you've got a good license system. One or two of our people are still waiting for their full license, but they're about to get it in the next couple of months, but they've started their training already. You've got to be willing to learn. Once again, the SAS system of learning, it's adult learning, so it's designed to help you succeed the whole way through. And I stress, you've always got people around you that are willing to help. You've got to be a good communicator, because that's our business. We're talking to people perhaps at the worst time in their lives, or they're in a stressful situation where our job is to help them, and that is being able to communicate with them calmly but honestly, and also have a good relationship with your workmates. We generally work in twos on our ambulance. Sometimes we have threes, but I hope I've given you a little bit of an indication. I'm so passionate about the volunteering, but it is such an exceptional opportunity to volunteer with an organisation like SAS. You will receive the best of the best training. You'll get to step into this area that only a small percentage of the population do, and that is emergency healthcare. And from my point of view, my wife and I have had absolutely no regrets. It's just been a thrilling ride the whole way through that we think is going to be with us for some time now. So I think it's something you can really consider, and something you can investigate further, because it's so worthwhile, and it's a privilege to wear the green. It really is. I think, Daryl, are you up next? Oh no, I'm throwing back to Rob. So there you go, Rob. Thanks, mate.
Tony, thank you very much. Tony, thank you very much for that. Really brilliant synopsis of what's in it for people when they volunteer and what are we looking for, and really exciting to hear that you've just had your 5-year award. So congratulations on that to you and your wife, and well done. It's a pretty impressive piece of work that you've been doing down there. So really great. So look, thank you for that. Now I'm going to hand over to Daryl. Daryl, as I mentioned earlier, is a regional team leader. Daryl will tell you a little bit more about himself, but the reality is that a regional team leader is a pretty important person in relation to how volunteers are then supported to go on a journey like Tony's and make a difference in their community. So Daryl, I'll hand over to you now, and you can take us through what some of the training aspects are. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you firstly for giving up your time to be with us tonight, and for us to be able to share with you the sort of things that happen at SA Ambulance. As Rob said, my name's Daryl Sparrow. I'm the the regional team leader for Adelaide Plains. I've been relieving on and off in all areas of the state for about the last 5 years, even down in Tony's patch. And it's great to hear Tony being so buoyant about his experience and really enjoying the journey. One thing I have found is that the communities really value our volunteer staff. A lot of them don't know that their local ambos are volunteers, and we try to get that message out as much as we can. And so even you guys that are from rural areas, if you can talk about it when you go back into your communities and say, look, these guys are all volunteers, maybe that'll spark some interest and they'll want to come and join as well. So my area is the Adelaide Plains. I look after Malala and Hamley Bridge, and also the Northern Area response team. At Malala, we probably have 30 to 35 volunteers, and at Hamley Bridge, probably about half of that number, I guess. So your journey starts, as Tony said, you apply for a position within the ambulance service through the volunteer portal, and then you become onboarded. So you need to have an interview. So you'll come and have an interview with the likes of Tony and Tony's regional team leader, Louis. And then if we find that you're suitable and you like the idea of joining us, then you'll be onboarded through the volunteer support unit that Rob talked about. I think Nicole's going to talk more about that when she comes on. And as Tony said, you'll start as an observer. So you'll go out as a third on the ambulance, and then you'll start to do your ambulance assist course. That's usually programmed around every 8 weeks, and there's probably 4 or 5 workshops, normally on the weekends. Again, you're never out of pocket because SAS pays for your travel and any meals while you're doing that. If there's any overnight stays required because of where it is, SAS also pick that up. They're usually full days. They're pretty full-on days, and you do get a lot of camaraderie between the people that you train with, even those that might not be from the patch that you're training for. You still manage to form friendships, and some of those friendships become lifelong, as I'm sure Tony would attest to. We offer recognition of prior learning, so an RPL pathway for people that have prior experience. So that's all organised through our clinical education. And then once you have done your ambulance assist courses, you will do a consolidation book. And when the consolidation book's finished, you'll become an AA. And so then you'll go into the second spot on the ambulance, as opposed to being an observer or a third on the ambulance. And then when you're ready, you can sign up for the ambulance responder course. And as Tony said, that's when you start to look at more of the medical stuff. I guess ambulance assist, you mainly are going to be driving and doing manual tasks, but then you'll move into the clinical area in the ambulance response course. Once that's over, and we're probably looking at around 12 months to finish up to the AR course, then you can enrol for the AO course. So the AR course is an accredited course at a level 2, certificate level 2, and certificate 4 is for the AO course. And as Rob was saying before, these qualifications can be used also to get into other areas of health. From Malala, from people that have joined here in the last 12 months, we have 1 person that is now working in comms, and we have 2 that have actually joined PTS, which is a great loss to us, but it's great for the service holistically, I guess. But the training that you'll get here can actually set you up for that sort of stuff. What else can I talk about? We also have accelerated pathways for registered nurses. So if there's any registered nurses online that may be interested, we have accelerated learning and qualifications for you, again, worked out with clinical education. Here at Malala, we train every fortnight, and at Hamley Bridge every fortnight. And then in the in-between week, we have student training at Gawler, where students can come along and just do their sign-offs, and we can do scenarios and do the real practical stuff. So they can come along and basically we can tailor it to whatever they want to do. And I think that's about all I was going to cover. Yeah, all right. So thank you, Rob, and thank you again for you guys joining us online and helping and letting us share with you how wonderful SAS is.
Thanks, Daryl. I think the important message that Daryl's certainly pushed across there is our training is staged. It's done so that we introduce you gradually. However, we know there are some people who volunteer for us who come from, a clinical background, a medical background, might be a registered nurse, or we have doctors that volunteer for us. We try to make that pathway as simple as possible. And we're actually doing a whole lot of work at the moment around, freeing up some of those pathways even further so that we can actually support registered health professionals to become part of our organisation more efficiently, if you like, or quickly. But it does require us to have some due diligence around people's capabilities, so it's important we do that. So just to move on now, I'm going to hand over to Nicole Bradkey. As I mentioned earlier, Nicole's our manager of the Volunteer Support Unit, a very important part of this organisation, and there's a lot of things go on in there that support volunteers into the organisation, but then once they're part of the organisation, so working closely with the Daryls and the Tonys of the world to make things happen. So Nicole, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you for joining, everyone. Welcome to the information session. As Rob said, I'm the manager for the Volunteer Support Unit. So we are a team of 8 that operate out of the head office in Adelaide, and we will most likely be the first people that you come across in your volunteering journey, as we will be the ones that see your application form when it comes in. There are a couple of options if you're looking to join us. On the screen is the number, the 1300 number that you can give us a call and we can give you some further details, or you can email us at that address. We help our volunteers in a variety of ways. We perform an advocacy service for the volunteers, so we advocate on your behalf for things like policies and procedures within the organisation to make sure that they are in line with the volunteering journey and suit the variances that may occur between volunteering and career staff. We also support the reimbursement, so we will process the reimbursements when they come in. We have a volunteer app that's easily downloadable, and on that app is a reimbursement which makes it very, very easy and quick to claim reimbursement for some of those costs that were talked about as far as travel or your childcare costs or meals for training. We also support staff not only, as I said, through the first contact when you apply. We will support you through the onboarding process and help you get through all of the different checks that we need. But we will also support you once you become a volunteer in anything that goes on in the administration space. Our reward and recognition programs also run out of the Volunteer Support Unit, and we do things like exchange programs with other ambulance services interstate and also in New Zealand. We plan and run volunteer conferences around the state, and we also the service award that Tony received. We manage that process, as well as leadership development and opportunities throughout the year as well. We can go to the next slide. Thanks. So the process to become a volunteer involves filling out an application form. That can be found in the volunteer section on the SA Ambulance website. Once that comes into our office, we will match you with the closest station and also put you in contact with the regional team leader for that station. We do require a few mandatory clearances, including a working with children check, a national police check, a medical and specific vaccinations. The good news is that we pay for all of these, and we will support you through that whole process to make it as easy as possible. And once we have all of those clearances, you will be issued with a SAS ID number, and then your team leader, like someone like Tony or feedback, Daryl will be in contact with you and support you through your clinical journey and the rest of your volunteering journey. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, it all sounds a little bit daunting, I'm sure, to some people, but there are a lot of things that we just help you through with, and it can be confronting for some people to say, look, I've got to go and get this check done, and I've got to do this form online, and I've got to do this. We are here to help you. If you want to be part of our organisation, we're going to work with you to hopefully get you to where you need to be so you can start that journey. So great opportunity for you to make a difference for yourself, but also for your community. So now, thank you, Tony and Daryl and Nicole. Now, there are some questions in the chat, and a couple of us have been responding to them in the chat, but I might, just for the benefit of everyone, in case they can't see them, we'll quickly just run through them. The first one was, can you nominate how many hours or days per week? And the answer to that question is yes. So currently we ask our volunteers to do 30 hours per month on the roster. Now we're actually reviewing that at the moment. We're trying to understand how that works for volunteers in 2024 and beyond, but 30 hours a month. But you can do that in a variety of shift formats. It can be in chunks of hours, or a full shift, or whatever that might be, a 10 or a 12-hour shift, working alongside another ambulance officer or paramedic. And you can do that from home or the station, depending on the location. So some of our closer to metro stations, we like our volunteers to be on station, and we support people to do that. And we have facilities on stations that are very comfortable, and that allow you to do all sorts of things while you're there. But at some locations around the state, we run what I would call a traditional volunteering service, whereby you would be at home or indeed at work, and the pager would go off. You would you ring a number that goes to the emergency operations centre. They tell you the nature of the case, and you make your way to the ambulance station, crew up, and go and do the case. So there's some flexibility in there around where you can do your volunteering from, but also how you can do it in an hours context. And in a similar vein, Trish asks, can you select the days to volunteer? The answer to that is yes, you can. Where possible, we like to be as flexible as possible with our volunteers. We want to maximise the opportunity for you to do what you can do. But equally, we have a roster to fill, and we have some coverage needs. So we have to balance all of that. And people like Tony and Daryl will work with you to come up with the best way that we can achieve that with what you're able to offer. And then another question was, what is the possible versus normal timeline for the training to be fully completed from AA to AO? And Daryl's really captured it well here. He said, look, the quickest possible timeline is probably 12 months, depends on your background, your experience level, but also, how we can actually slot you into training courses around your availability. So, 12 months is doable, but it requires a bit of effort. But of course, the important thing to remember is, during that timeline when you're training, you are working on the ambulance as part of a crew. You're working with your teammates, your team members, and you are developing and learning on the job. So as much as there's some classroom bits and there's some online bits, there's actually on-the-job training, which really is the most valuable part of all. So that's a great opportunity. Now, someone's just put here, I'm on a P1, can I still volunteer now? I'll be on P2 in February. We tend to like people to come in with a P2 licence. What that allows us to do is some driver training with you and allow you to drive. But it doesn't allow you to drive under emergency conditions, so lights and sirens conditions. So it's important just to acknowledge that. So it gives you an opportunity to start your training as you work towards the full licence, where at that point we can finalise your training with the driver training required for emergency driving. And Daryl, I'm not a driving instructor. I think you might be. Have I missed anything there?
You haven't missed anything, but I guess it's, if people come in and they've got a long time before they go onto a full licence, they can become a little frustrated if they do lots and lots of training but can't actually operate in the second position. because you can imagine that if we put you in line 2 and you go to someone who's really sick and the AO needs to be in the back treating the patient as well as being in the front so they can drive lights and sirens to the hospital, it puts them in a fairly precarious position. So we probably like it if you're sort of laid into your P2 session. And I think P2s are now 2 years, if I'm correct. They've gone from 1 year to 2 years, is that right?
I couldn't tell you that. Someone might be able to. It's a long time since I've had a probationary licence.
Yes, that is correct.
Is correct, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. So you can imagine if you come in with 2 years to run to the end and you do all this training, you can sort of become a bit frustrated that you can't operate within that training, I guess. So we need to be careful and balance that up.
Yeah, I wouldn't let that detract you from maybe considering being involved, but I would certainly listen to or heed some of Daryl's context there, because I think that will be a challenge for some people. But we're happy to still hear from you and still happy to try and work with you to come up with a solution. Now, that's all the questions we have in the chat. Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not. I've found some more. Do you get to choose of your stationed area? Okay, so if you live in a community where there is an ambulance station, we're going to prefer you to be part of that team because it helps. But that doesn't prevent you volunteering at other locations around the state. We're happy to have people go on a roster anywhere around the state. You know, it's an important thing that we cover rosters statewide. So if you become a qualified ambulance officer and you want to travel a little bit and you want to do a shift here and a shift there, and we have people that go onto York Peninsula and take their caravan, and you know, we'll pay for their caravan park fees, because if they're there for a period of time and they're covering shifts, it is a mutually beneficial arrangement. So we're very happy to consider all those sort of things. But ideally, you'd be, if you're living in a community where there's a station, then that would be where you'd volunteer. Now, if you're living in a location where there isn't a station, that could be Metropolitan Adelaide, or it could be somewhere, you know, where there's a paid station, but there's a volunteer station nearby. Yeah, we could certainly discuss with you how we can get you into that volunteer station to work. So, you know, we're really, really keen. Oh, Daryl's just said the Mallala crew tonight are from Meadows and Goolwa, so there you go. So I'm really keen on come to Yank, says Tony. I'm really keen to see more of that. I'd like to see volunteers have the opportunity to travel around the state, work in different locations. So if you're seriously thinking, Tess, about getting on board and you wanted to have a preference for a location, you know, by all means, let us know. But, you know, we're happy to work with you and come up with a solution for that. Someone's just said that they're on a 491 visa. Now, I'm not an expert on visas, so I'm sorry. Nicole, we might need to take that one on notice and do a bit of research, unless someone's got an answer to that one.
Yeah, if send us an email to the volunteer support unit or give us a call and we can check out that. The one visa that we cannot take on is a student visa, but we will check the 491 visa for you and just have a look at the conditions on that as to whether you can volunteer or not.
Excellent, thank you. Look, it's an anonymous post, so whoever that person is, if you want to, please, can we pop up the email address again on the screen? Yeah, just email into the email address, visit the website, ring the number. That'll give you an opportunity for us to work that out for you. So it's a great question, though, because one of the things we are very keen on also is celebrating and encompassing diversity within our organisation. So, you know, if we have people from other countries who are here and they're eligible to volunteer, we're happy to work with them and come up with an outcome that helps them, but also helps us. And I can't see any more questions. So is there anything from anyone else? Would anyone else like to ask anything in the chat? Oh, and Kate's just popped in the chat the sasvolunteer@sa.gov.au email address. Right. Anything further from anyone? Any questions about anything? Conscious of the time, and that you've taken the time to come and be with us tonight, and I really appreciate it. What I just want to say then in finishing up is oh, hang on, we have another question, Paula. What volunteer roles are more suited to retirees, older citizens? Well, first and foremost, we don't put an age limit on your volunteering operationally. So we're happy to take applications from anybody at any age. However, let's be realistic and acknowledge that there are sometimes medical issues, physical issues that might prevent you from being able to do the job of an ambulance officer. So we have, and this was mentioned earlier by, I think Tony may have mentioned this, about support volunteers. These are people who, on a team, I refer to them as the gophers on the team. They're the people that help out at the station. They might wash the ambulance, they might keep the station clean, they might do some work around the place to keep the garden tidy, help out on a training night, be the professional patient, so to speak. You know, be the person who's happy to lie down on the ground and be treated and assessed and treated by the crew and so on. It's very much about making the work of the ambulance officers, the people who are volunteering their time to be the operational ambulance officers, making it simpler and easier. So we're also keen to hear from people who want to be support volunteers. I think it's very much about knowing what your limitations are, but we're really keen to hear from all ages and look to incorporate and support people to be part of the organisation. Rhiannon, I'm an RN that gets monthly rosters. How do we select our availability and what time frame do you prefer? Look, the rostering at stations is often done on like Darryl mentioned, his teams meet fortnightly. Some teams meet weekly, some meet fortnightly. So certainly the rosters are often done on those training nights, and everyone puts their names down for whatever their availability is. The advent of technology, advent of various apps and things that we've put in play for volunteers means, you know, you can nominate, you can have a look and nominate for a vacant shift really at any time, and our rostering department can take your call, or you know, there could be an email. It could be anything like that you actually say, hey, I'm actually available on Tuesday. I can go into that shift, or I can do 8 hours on Tuesday to cover the day shift or part of the night shift. Whatever's going to work. It's very much about us working with your availability so that we can fulfill what we need to do to ensure there's an ambulance response. So as much as we want to have lots of hours predicted, rostered hours predicted, we know that for some volunteers, it's literally a day-by-day proposition. So some people will tell us, look, I don't know, I'll let you know tomorrow. And they say, yep, I can go on shift tomorrow. I can cover that part. I can do this. We'll work with that. But equally, if people want to be able to tell us that they can do, you know, a 10-hour shift every week on a Thursday, then we want to work with that as well and go, how do we make that fitting? So whatever you think you can do, let's have a look at it. We can work with you. So thanks, Rhiannon. It's a great question. Given you're an RN, hopefully we can, if you're interested and you apply, we can hopefully put you into our accelerated course for registered nurses. Right. Oh no, another question, Trish. What happens if no one is available? Oh, great question. Okay, so this is very much about service delivery. So if you become part of our organisation, you'll hear those terms a lot. It's about ensuring communities get the service that they need. If there's no one available in town A and town B is 50 kilometres away and it has an ambulance crew, then that ambulance crew will always get sent to town A. So the neighbouring town will always support the other town. Across the state, we have clusters of stations. So in some cases, I think Tony mentioned earlier, his station's a must-be mandated crewed station. So we know that Yankalilla has to be crewed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At some locations, we might find there's 2 stations nearby each other, maybe a 50-kilometre trip, for instance, and we'll say, well, between those two stations, we need at least one crew. And we will always focus on getting at least one crew. Now, if we get two crews, then we are ecstatic. That is brilliant. But if we get one crew, we know that that is enough to provide the service across those two communities. So it's very much about ensuring we've got some capacity for service delivery. Hence the reason for running these sessions. We want to run these sessions to inform people about how they can become part of our organisation, and we can increase our crewing right across the state. So thanks, Trish. That's a really great question. And Rhiannon, awesome. Oh, thank you. Oh, look, thanks very much for dialing in, Rhiannon. Really appreciate your time. And indeed, everybody. It's great to be able to talk to people via this this medium. It's not exactly an interactive one because it's me talking and others talking and you guys are typing questions, but it is interactive in that sense that we can at least exchange some information for you. Really encourage you to visit the website saambulance.sa.gov.au, which you can find links then to the volunteering parts of the organisation. If you really want to just talk to someone, there's a 1300 number there, 1300 175 584. And you're more than welcome to give us a call, and we'd love to have a chat to you and see what we can do to get you volunteering. So on that note, I think we'll call it a night. Also, thank you very much to all the presenters, really, Tony, Daryl and Nicole in particular. What you also can't see is the team of people in the room here with me who are making this this presentation run. So thank you to Alexi, Rachel and Kate. Really appreciate your efforts in making this happen. We'll do some more of these over the journey. So if you want to dial into another one and really, you just want to finally make up your mind, that'll be great. But alternatively, tell your friends if you think they'll be interested. We'd love to hear from them. All right, I'm going to say thank you very much and good night to you all, and wish you all the best. Thank you. Bye.